So today we are discussing how you will know you're in labor. And I think everyone wants the answer of, oh, you'll know. But sometimes there's questions and maybe you don't know. So here are a few ways that you can tell you're in labor, hopefully. So one way is that you are getting contractions. So sometimes, though, women get Braxton Hicks contractions, and these are false labor contractions. There's a great way to tell between Braxton Hicks and labor, true labor, and that is one, the tummy. So with Braxton Hicks contractions, you might be contracting and getting tight in certain areas of your stomach, and generally, you could eat through these, you could drink through these. They could be very uncomfortable, but maybe you take a warm shower and they go away. Most likely, you're experiencing Braxton Hicks contractions, and this can happen weeks before labor. It's sometimes not even an indication that labor is directly on its way, and that is really frustrating. And some women go into the hospital or call their midwives and say, I'm in labor, and they get sent back home. And that's okay, because we would rather someone came into a hospital or called their midwife and went to make sure than to just go through it and actually be in labor. So, when in doubt, call your provider. It is never a problem to think you're in labor and have it be Braxton Hicks. Also, they can give you some different movements or breathing exercises to get through those, because they can be pretty intense. The difference, though, is that they are not making effective change on your cervix. The change on your cervix is what dilation is, essentially, and that comes from the contraction. So every time you get a contraction, it is opening that cervix a little bit more so that baby can come through. So that would be the difference there. The other thing we see in movies all the time is that your water could break. Interestingly enough, though, your water doesn't break every time. Sometimes you can be in labor for hours before your water breaks, days before your water breaks. It's different for everyone. I mean, labor times are completely different for everyone. Active labor, pre-labor, they all are totally determined by you and your body and what your body decides to do. So some babies are even born in their waters where the bag never breaks and they actually break it when the baby comes out. Or you'll have your midwife or your doctor maybe break your water because you're starting to feel labor and it's just not progressing. Or maybe a good way to tell is if you got a membrane sweep or pulled the mucus plug and you are now gushing waters. There's a really good chance that that is your water breaking. But that is another thing, is sometimes you might have peed. I'm going to be honest. Sometimes people think their water may have broken, and it really could, it could be urine. So you can always go in and get it tested. They are able to tell. But again, when in doubt, if you think your water broke and you're in labor, contact your provider. No harm in that. So the difference between Braxton Hicks that we talked about earlier and labor contractions are sort of the opposite of the Braxton Hicks. They're going to be, your uterus is hard all the way through because that whole uterus is bearing down, pushing, and creating space for that head to come through. So effective change coming from those contractions. The other thing is that they're not going to be on and off like a Braxton Hicks contraction. False labor is going to be, I can eat through this, I can drink through this, I can take a shower, it goes away. Everything I mentioned earlier, but it'll also be sporadic. So once you have contractions that are actually doing something, which you can find out by checking to see if you're dilated, you can have your midwife or your provider, and some women check for themselves if you are dilated with very clean hands. This is a great way to tell if you're in labor. If you're getting effective change and you are dilating, labor is happening. But timing is key. So you can time your contractions, and once they start getting closer together and longer in duration, you know that your labor is progressing. So a good rule of thumb, I've heard different things, the 4-1-1 rule, the 3-1-1 rule. 4-1-1 maybe if you're a second-time mama, maybe the 3-1-1 if you're a first-time mom, but don't take my word for it. Ask your professional. I am not a medical professional. I am a doula. I am your support person. But what I have been told is when they're about 3, 4, 5 minutes apart and they last for about a minute apiece, is a really, really good time to contact your provider and say, hey, I think I'm in labor and it's time to make a plan or follow the plan you already have in play. So yeah, I think those are some of the best ways to tell if you are in labor. And like I said, the best way to tell is to contact a provider. The other best way is kind of that you will know, because we just have an innate sense sometimes in our bodies and we're really, really good. So trust your intuition. It's the biggest thing I can tell you. Trust your intuition, and if you are wrong, there's no harm in thinking you're in labor and just being overly cautious. Nothing wrong with it.